Welcome to the fastest way to develop an unpassable guard, no-gi guard retention. Our purpose in this video is to help you understand and develop the skills to nullify an opponent's guard passing attempts long enough to tire and frustrate him and set up your offensive guard game. I have always maintained that the two most foundational skills of jiu-jitsu are pin escapes and guard retention. My reasoning is simple. All the other skills of jiu-jitsu presuppose your ability to move freely into those moves. If you're pinned, you can't move, and hence none of the skills of jiu-jitsu will be of any use to you. The means by which an opponent pins you is to pass your guard. Hence, guard retention and pin escapes are two of the most foundational skills of the sport, and heavy emphasis on these two factors must be a big part of your learning. Never forget that the two things you need the most to succeed from bottom position are space to move and sufficient time to employ the techniques of guard position. Only if you have good guard retention will you have these two prerequisites. My own story in jiu-jitsu illustrates this point. When I began jiu-jitsu, like most beginners, I felt much more comfortable in top position than bottom position. When it came to bottom position, I put all of my early study into offense from bottom. This had the effect that my bottom game devolved into a race between my attempts to submit the top player and his attempts to pass my guard. This always resulted in situations where I either quickly submitted an opponent or I got my guard passed. This kind of either-or, victory-loss result is not satisfactory. The idea is to be able to control the outcome reliably rather than turn it into a win-lose coin flip. It was not until I shifted my focus towards guard retention that finally I developed a real sense of guard play where you can control the action over time and steer the events in your favor rather than rush to either victory or defeat. The general methodology we will use in this video is to start with understanding the nature and problems of guard retention so that you have a very clear mental picture of what you're trying to achieve. And then we'll work on the general physical skills to be able to do this. The general conceptual understanding helps immensely, as you will have to defend against many guard passing methods applied in combination at a rapid pace. Once that conceptual framework is laid out, we will get into the specifics of guard retention against the most commonly seen and the most successful guard passing methods in no-gi jiu-jitsu today. Let's go forward now and begin our study. Let's get into the study of guard retention with what I believe are 12 essential body movements, without which it would be very difficult for you to perform any of the moves that we're going to be looking at in this video. So it's a natural place and a good place for us to start. These 12 movements don't require any kind of athletic gifts. They're relatively easy for most people to perform, but you must be aware of what they are so that later on in the video, as you go to perform moves with a training partner, you'll see exactly how they fit into our system of guard retention. I want you to be able to practice these solo. I will demonstrate them solo, and then I will show how they actually apply with my training partner, Placido. But bear in mind that you'll be doing these most days as a warm-up before class in order to perfect them over time. I've always believed that these kinds of movement are much more relevant for you as a jiu-jitsu student than many normal class warm-ups like burpees or jumping jacks, which have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. If I could make a suggestion, I would say before every class when you go to warm up, these are the kinds of movements you want to perform. The first movement we're going to look at is the easiest one. This is pommeling your legs. Okay, pommeling your legs involves the circular movement of your lower legs and the linear movement of your hips from left to right in concert, so that you can start to move your feet in ways where it will be difficult for an opponent to control your legs. So, seen from a slight angle, the idea is we always work with our knees close to our chest, and then from this position we start a circular action with our feet. When you first start off, you'll be going relatively slowly. Understand that, of course, you can pommel your legs in two different directions, and you should be good on both sides. As you start to gain in skill, you'll be going slightly faster. Understand that there are two movements involved. First, there is the obvious circular movement of our feet. And at the same time, you'll notice my hips are going from left to right. And the coordination of these two things is the movement of pommeling. As you pommel, try to maintain your feet on the outside, pointing away and out. This is important when you're actually working with a live opponent. You'll be needing to hook into your opponent, etc., etc. So as you pommel, make sure your toes point to the outside. Don't have your feet pointing up in the air like so. Toes to the outside. My hips move left and right while my feet circle. As you do this, make sure your knees stay close to your chest. The further your knees drift away from the chest, the less realistic the movement becomes. So seen from another angle, from here, you'll start with your knees close to your chest. Then from here, your toes will point outwards, and you'll start that circular action. As your hips move left and right, your feet will follow the circle. So Placido comes up and stands at a slight angle. If Placido put hands on my knees, I would use this pommeling action to pommel inside a hand. I would use this pommeling action to pommel inside a bicep. Okay? So that kind of motion of pommeling legs and putting them to the inside of my training partner, so I can pommel around my training partner's arms. If he puts a hand here, I can pommel my foot to the inside of his hands and move my body across one side to the other. Okay, so this is your first body movement, pommeling your legs. Circular with the feet, linear with the hips. The second big movement is well known to almost every jiu-jitsu athlete. This is shrimping. The idea is there are many ways to shrimp, but the one we're going to demonstrate for this guard retention element is the simplest one of them all. From a situation where I start with my knees close to my chest, I plant the foot to the mat, and I put frames up so I have knee-elbow connection on one side of my body. And then from here, we're simply going to shrimp our body out and create a V shape with our forearm, a top frame, so we're well framed here, and we've moved our body out to the side. Then from here, I place my foot on the floor, and we do the same thing on the other side, presenting a foot towards my opponent, two framed hands, and we just work from one side across to the other. Seen from another angle, you'll see the essence of shrimping is that my hips move out to a given side while my upper body and inside leg frame together. So we take our foot, we plant the foot outwards. Go out as far as you can. Make sure your foot is outside of your knee. Don't just plant your foot inside your knee, you won't move very far. So we put the foot outside the knee, and that's what enables us to shrimp our body out and create that initial framing effect with two hands and a foot. Then we plant this foot here down to the mat, and we shrimp out to the other side. And in this way, we can start that action of pushing our hips out and moving backwards. You'll see, here I start at a given location. When I shrimp, I move further away from my opponent. My hips move out and away, and my shoulders move further away from him like so. So it's a way of creating space between myself and an opponent. So I first put up a barrier so he can't advance towards me. I put my foot out, and I shrimp my hips away. This way, you get distance and angle from a potential opponent. The third movement we're going to look at is scooting. Scooting is essentially a seated version of shrimping. We have an imaginary opponent in front of us. And from here, as he advances towards us, we get an ability to take our feet back like so and push our body back. And we can go from one side across to the other. So we put up a frame, our feet come in, and we scoot and gain distance away from an opponent. We put up a frame, we bring our feet in close to our buttocks, so when we scoot, we can create distance. You'll see that shrimping and scooting are just ways to create distance. If Placido starts on two knees and he's in relatively close, he's threatening to come towards me, that's a serious problem. But if we put frames up, and then from here, we start a shrimping action, now we can create distance between us and the frames make it hard for him to advance. And this is going to set up a lot of the moves that we use in guard retention. So on the other side, when he starts to threaten, we put up initial frames, our foot goes out, and from here, we shrimp. Now my hips are far enough away that I can start bringing legs back between myself and my opponent. Please understand that shrimping has its problems in guard retention. Just a small angle here. Shrimping does have a problematic element. The key element in posture for guard retention is knee-elbow connection. The more my knees and elbows are connected, the harder it is for an opponent to pass my guard. When you shrimp, you're going to lose knee-elbow connection on one side of your body. Okay, so be aware of this fundamental weakness in all forms of shrimping. That's why it's very important from here we form that knee-elbow connection on this side. And then we'll see other ways to bring knee-elbow connection back later on in the video. But be aware that when you drop a foot to the ground, you are losing knee-elbow connection. Against a standing opponent, if he advances to a given side, I may need to scoot in order to preserve space between us. As he advances to a given side, I may need to scoot in order to keep space between us. So you'll see that scooting and shrimping are effective ways of creating distance between you and opponent, in particular between your hips and your opponent. Another very, very important method of solo drilling looks like nothing, but actually has a significant impact on your ability to retain guard. This is the idea of hip kipping. At any given moment, your opponent will be trying to pass to a given side, and many will be the time that he will push your knees away so that he can pass on the side opposite the direction your knees are pointing. That's good for him. So if Placido is here in front of me, if he goes to pass in this direction, and then he grabs a hold of my two knees and makes them look the other way, it's going to be very easy for him to complete the pass. Why? When my knees are pointing this way and he's on this side of my body, it's very hard for me just to retain guard. If I try to shrimp, then I actually expose my stomach to my opponent here, and you can actually facilitate the guard pass. So what we want here is a method of correcting our body. My knees are currently pointing in the wrong direction. That doesn't always involve planting a foot and shrimping and exposing my body to his guard pass. So what we do is we take our 2 feet and we just kip our body so that my hips come ever so slightly off the mat. Once this occurs, we can just turn our knees back to face the correct direction. So when he goes to pass now my knees are facing him. It's very, very hard to defend a guard pass when your knees are pointing the wrong way. And it's a big risk for me to plant my feet and shrimp. In the time available, he might pass my guard. So the idea of hip kipping is that if my knees are pointing in the wrong direction, I use an upward movement of my feet to make my hips light. And then I simply kip and make my knees face back towards my opponent. Now I can defend myself effectively. Please understand that even though I'm calling it a hip kip, a significant part of how this works is your elbows braced into the mat. It will be difficult for you to do this move successfully without bracing your elbows. So when I brace my elbows here, my knees are pointing to the west. I need them to face towards the east. So I just throw my legs up, make my hips light, and I face my opponent once again with my knees. So here, Placido has gone around and is threatening to pass in a given direction. I just take my 2 feet, make a kip, and now my knees face my opponent. And in this way, I can change the direction of my knees without exposing and losing elbow-knee connection, so an opponent can pass my guard in that time frame. So this too, even though it looks like a rather benign and insignificant movement, turns out to be one of the more useful ones when you're actually sparring live with an opponent. Another very important and fundamental movement is crossovers. What is a crossover? That's where my feet cross over each other, like so. So here, my left foot is outside my right knee, and then I cross over like so. And again, this is mostly done through the action of my elbows braced on the mat. If my elbows are not on the mat, it would be quite difficult for me to cross over. That brace enables me to flip one leg and cover the other leg. Now, this is an important movement when an opponent goes to start the action of switching sides, but he has not yet passed the line of your hips. What does this mean? As long as Placido is here in front of my legs, he doesn't really represent much of a threat, just take a bent over position. Now, once he starts to advance to a given side, but he has not yet passed the line of my hips, this is a good time for us to use a crossover, where I simply cross one leg over the other and use that to pull my body around. And I can use the legs crossing over to keep this guy in guard. Every time he threatens on a given side, I cross over and bring him through, okay? And in this way, if someone's here right in front of you, this is the perfect time for us, as he gets a slight angle for me just to bring my foot over my opponent and bring him back. And you can just cross over every time you see this guy go to pass, okay? And this will keep him in front of you in a position where he's never going to get that significant angle on you in order to pass your guard. Now, crossovers are performed when the opponent is down below the line of your hips. But the really interesting part of guard retention starts when your opponent gets past the line of your hips. Your hips represent a very, very important demarcation line. As long as he's in front of my hip line, I'm in a position where I have him more or less under control, and I can start up any attacks I want based on distance and connection. The second your opponent comes around beyond the line of your hips, you are now in a situation where you have gone from an offensive position to a defensive situation, okay? This would be the beginning of what we call a defensive cycle, where now I have to defend myself. I cannot ignore the fact that he's come up to my hip line. Now we go into the idea of a high leg. What is a high leg? That's where an opponent is standing over us, and in these situations, we're going to take our leg high over our training partner and make connection on the opposite side of his body. We're going to put the sole of our foot on our training partner's body and use that to claw our way back into a situation where we face him again. Every time he runs to an angle, we're going to put up our frames. We'll talk more about that later. And then from here, we're going to put a foot on our training partner's body and correct our body relative to him. So every time he comes around and forms an angle on us, we're going to start this action of taking our foot around the corner and putting the sole of your foot anywhere from shoulders, hips, legs, doesn't matter, and turn our body around in the opposite direction. So as he comes down, we put up frames on our training partner, and then from here, we bring that leg high over our training partner and start to come around the corner and face him once again, okay? Now, how would we practice this solo? The way we do it is we have an imaginary opponent who comes to an angle, we put up our frame hand. You're going to take the opposite foot and you're going to touch the outside of your wrist, like so, okay? So there's the frame, and we come up, we touch the outside of the wrist. And in this way, we get used to the idea of joining hand and foot, just as you would in a live passing situation. So as he comes out to an angle, we come up, we put our frame hand in place, and we put him back in guard. Let's change the angle so people can see. So he comes around the corner, we put up our frame hand, and our foot comes around and joins our hand. And as a result, we're able to put this guy back in guard. Every time we connect hand and foot together, we're in the perfect position to put this guy back in guard. The way we do this solo is from here, we put the frame hand out, and we touch the outside of the wrist. Just like so. That high leg action is one of the more fundamental methods of putting someone back in guard when they're past the line of your hips and you're in jeopardy of getting your guard passed. Another very, very important method of guard retention is an inside leg. What is an inside leg? From a situation where someone's starting to pass our guard, we've seen the idea of using our outside leg to high leg over and put them back in guard. Another excellent method is to bring our inside leg through and connect to our training partner's quadricep on the lead leg. This enables me to pull my body all the way around. So when he forms an angle on me, look how I can take my foot and hook onto his thigh. That enables me to pull my body back and put him back in guard. So every time this guy goes in to pass my guard, I can make that hook with the inside leg and drag myself back to face him. So again, he makes a movement, and there's the hook, which enables us to put him back in guard. Every time he goes through, we're going to get that opportunity to put him back in guard. Okay? How do we practice this solo? Well, we've got our frames up. We're just going to reach out and touch the floor. Once we touch the floor, we pull our body back the other way. Now we reach out, touch the floor. Instead of his hip, we use the mat, and we put him back in guard. So we have an opponent passing on my right-hand side. My right foot touches the mat, realigns my body, and puts him back in guard. He goes to pass to my left-hand side. I put up my left frame. My left foot makes contact with the mat and drags me back into alignment. This mimics the action. As my opponent goes to pass to a given side, I put up a frame. My inside foot hooks over my training partner's thigh. So instead of using the floor now, we're using his body. And we use that to put our body back and put him back in guard. Okay? So there we have high leg using the outside leg, and we have the inside leg hook, which enables us to go back into alignment and put that guy right back in front of you. Now, another very, very important one is the inverted spin. In an inverted spin, we understand that your hip line is the first jeopardy point. That's where your opponent can put you in jeopardy. He's in stance and moves around to a given side. When he gets to my hip line, this puts me in jeopardy, and I have to react to this. I have to start putting him back in guard. But there is a worse situation than this. This is where he passes my shoulder line. Once he passes the shoulder line, now the movement I have to engage in to put him back in guard is significantly bigger than here on my side. Okay? So what would be that movement? Excuse me 1 minute, Placido. That movement involves us taking our legs up asymmetrically so that one is slightly more extended than the other. From that situation, one foot slightly more extended than the other, we're going to reach for the floor with a given foot. So I learn to invert and touch the mat. As I touch the mat, I now realign and put my imaginary opponent back in guard. So here we're facing to the south. My opponent walks around my body and comes up to the north. As I put up my imaginary frames, I now curl my body up and over, touch, and now I face the north where he is. Now he moves around to the south. I have to follow, touch, and face south. So Placido is in front of me, and he starts the action of walking around my body. As he comes down low, from here, we're going to start with that action of throwing my knee up. He comes down low, and we trap our training partner in such a way that from here, we can now face him. So as he comes around my body to a given side, we put up our frames, we put our knee and leg over the top, and we spin 180 degrees. He's currently south of me. He comes around north, and we start that action of throwing our legs up and over and putting this guy back in guard and finishing with our elbows and knees close together. So once again, he's here in front of me. He moves around, and we start that action of bringing knees and elbows in front and elbows and knees close together to finish. In this way, you can get a very nice inverted spin, which creates situations where he started on north in front of you and finished south, and you followed his movement spinning through. This, in my opinion, is one of the most important guard retention movements. And once again, the way we drill it solo before class is we get used to that idea of throwing our legs up somewhat asymmetrically so that one is more extended than the other. Then when we gain in confidence, we come over the top and touch the floor. So instead of using your opponent's body, use the floor as a substitute. And then from here, you rotate through and face your training partner with your elbows and knees close together. And this is a very realistic way of mimicking what you will be doing in live situations when you're trying to retain guard against a resisting opponent. Now, here's two movements which don't get talked about a lot, but which in my opinion is some of the most important for guard retention. The first is rather unglamorous looking. This is an elbow prop. From a situation where an opponent is going to pass our guard, we'll talk about this in more detail soon, but the basic idea is for someone to pass your guard, they must simultaneously pin a hip and a shoulder on the mat for 3 seconds. So once they get past your legs and they're coming down to pin you, they must successfully pin hip and shoulder for 3 seconds. If they can do that, they've officially passed your guard. So what we want to be able to do is to make damn sure that we never have hip and shoulder pinned. When someone threatens to pass my guard, one of the best things we can do is elbow prop, to come up to an elbow. In these situations, my hip is pinned, but my shoulder isn't. So even if he landed across my side now, I would not be in a pin. This creates the ability to move, okay? Because I don't have my shoulders on the floor, it's very easy for me to move and scoot from these situations and create space to put people back in guard. Okay, so it does two things. First, it breaks the criteria of a successful guard pass. The criteria of a successful guard pass are hip and shoulder on the mat for 3 seconds. So when someone first goes to pass and I stay hip and shoulder on the mat, he lands on top of me, 1, 2, 3, that's it, you're passed. It happens pretty quickly. But if he lands across my side and I come up to an elbow, no guard pass. Only when my shoulder gets returned to the mat and I'm held down for 3 seconds will he pass me. But if we come up here to an elbow and frame, then from here we can start moving. We can start putting this guy back in guard, okay, and prevent the guard pass from happening. So, for example, if Placido was down here, coming in close to a guard pass, and he starts to land across my side, coming in close, if I can get up here, even if he did get across my side now, went to drive, he would not have a pin, because my right shoulder is not on the mat, only my right hip. And this makes it very easy for me to take my 2 feet and start combining it with another motion, scooting, that we saw earlier. If I can prop and scoot, then I can create space and put this guy back in guard. So once again, the second this guy starts the action of passing, I put a frame up. As he goes to blow past my legs, I come up to an elbow. You can come up to a hand later if you want, but here's the minimum. When he tries to put weight on us, we just scoot. Now we can put this guy back in guard. Okay, so elbow propping is a very important thing. Now, here's something which we'll be talking about later in the video. There's a second way to prop. You can knee prop. And I'm not going to lie, I do believe that knee propping is intrinsically superior to elbow propping. Less back exposure, and it uses the strength of your legs rather than the strength of your arms. And legs are always stronger than arms, so it's a better one for smaller, weaker people to use against bigger, stronger opponents. There's a reason why it's my favorite. However, it does require slightly more dexterity. If you're an older or less flexible person, this might be a little more challenging for you. That's the only drawback to it. Now, knee propping involves us taking our foot and digging our toes into the mat the same way we would to perform a sumigeshi sweep. We're going to take our bent leg, toes in the mat, and we're going to prop on our knee, so that we take this weird looking posture here like a dog pissing on a tree. My shoulder is on the mat, but my hip is no longer on the mat. Guys, do you remember the criteria of a guard pass? Hip and shoulder on the mat for 3 seconds. If your opponent can do that, land across side, he has officially passed your guard. The second I take my hip off the ground, only my shoulder is on the mat. There's no guard pass from here. Okay, he can stay here for a minute. There's no guard pass. This is what he needs for 3 seconds to pass my guard. So the second we take that hip of ours off the mat into this knee prop, you now have a successful elbow knee frame that can hold people off. And from here, you can combine this with all the other movements which enable us to retain a guard. So this is on my right hand side. Left hand side, same thing. I take my foot, I cock it into the mat, I put up my frames, and I push off the mat. We take that weird knee shield, dog pissing on a tree posture, which enables us to hold this guy off and perform the other movements which enable us to retain guard. So what we want to be able to do is get that foot to the mat, push up, and frame. Solo drill, push up, and frame. Push up, and frame. Push up, and frame. Now, there's a weird detail to this move, without which it won't work at all under pressure. The whole key to a knee prop is that your knee goes outside of your opponent, of your own ankle. What does this mean? Okay, observe my right leg. When I go to prop myself up, I have to be able to push off an opponent. He's coming at me to pass my guard. He's coming in with pressure. So what I need to do is when I come up, watch my right knee goes outside of my right ankle. If my right knee is inside my right ankle, I get pushed over. Let's do a little experiment. Placido, take 2 knees right here. Right hand on my shoulder. When I go to prop, watch my right knee. This is the correct position. My right knee is outside my ankle. So when Placido goes to push me over, my whole body moves along the floor. I won't fall. As he pushes, I'm stable. Contrast that with this situation. I come up, but my knee has not gone where it should, outside the ankle. Rather, my ankle is outside my knee. Now when Placido pushes me, I just flop over, okay? How do we make this right? The way to do this is when he starts that push, you pull everything back, you take this position with your knee outside your ankle so that the inside of my knee is on the mat. If the outside of my knee is on the mat, I fall over every time. That's the whole key, gentlemen. We take our foot, we push, we put the inside of our knee on the mat. So when he goes to push us over, it's going to be a battle. But if the outside of my knee is on the mat, I just go down every time. Okay? Now, let's look at how this would be used in an actual competitive situation. Placido's on 2 knees, has his hands on my knees, and from here goes to pass my guard. From here, we're always looking to come up into this position. Okay, and from here, there's many ways for us to put our opponent back in guard. Okay, so on the other side, Placido goes past my knees. From here, we're looking to plant that foot and form that same position. And you will see us time and time again using this position in different ways. Against a tight waist, for example, guy comes in here to control us. I will often use a situation just like this. Okay, so it's going to be hard for your opponent to control you. And you will often see me making use of this method to retain guard. In my opinion, it is one of the most undersold, underappreciated body movements for guard retention. It is my favorite by far for a simple reason. It utilizes the strength of the legs rather than the upper body. That's why I believe it is inherently superior to coming up to an elbow. Coming up to an elbow is a good method. I make use of it like anyone else does. But it's your upper body strength versus the driving strength of his whole body. So as a general rule, my advice to you is simple. If you have a choice between propping on an elbow versus propping on a knee, go with the knee prop every time. And make this part of your daily drilling. Every day before class, you're warming up, you should be taking the opportunity to come up in this way, because you're going to be using this almost every time when it comes to guard retention, especially against a bigger, stronger opponent. Now, this very move leads into what I believe is one of the greatest methods of guard retention overall in the sport of jiu-jitsu, and this is shoulder rolling. A shoulder roll is just a continuation of a knee prop, okay? What do I mean by that? We have an imaginary opponent passing on my right-hand side. I come up with my knee prop. And then from here, the shoulder roll simply involves me taking my foot, tracing an outline along the mat, and then from here, putting my opponent back in guard with a roll, okay? So every time he comes up, we knee prop, and then from here, we just roll over and put him back in guard. So, Placido comes around the corner and goes to pass. From here, we start that action of knee propping. And off the knee prop, we just turn and put him back in guard. He comes around the corner. We start that action of framing. We start that action of knee propping. And from the knee prop, we just rotate through and put him back in guard. Your choice between open and closed guard. Okay? This is a very, very efficient way of going to work to put someone back in guard. The shoulder roll. We'll be spending a lot of time with this movement throughout this video. Now, the last method we're going to look at involves a leg scissor. What is a leg scissor? That's a movement that takes me from supine, facing up, to prone, facing down. So we're going to have an imaginary opponent on our side. We're going to pull everything in. My elbow comes close to my body. And then from here, I'm going to scissor my legs so I can come up to my knees. And then from my knees, I'm prone. Okay? So I start supine. I want to finish prone. The way we do it is by scissoring our legs. Once the legs scissor, we just come back into the prone position. And then from here, we can engage in many forms of guard retention that we'll be looking at. So there you have it. 12 simple solo drills that you can be doing every day before class as a simple warm-up. They get your body supple, warmed up, ready for action, and they actually mimic the movements of jiu-jitsu that you'll be using for guard retention. I suggest seeing them not only as a warm-up, but as a skill development when you first start off. If you cannot perform these fundamental moves, it will be very difficult for you to perform the moves as we demonstrate in the video. The good news is, within 1 week, these moves are so simple and so easy for most people to perform that you won't recognize yourself. You'll be able to do them effortlessly. It may well be the case that you can already do them effortlessly. If so, very good. We'll go right into the content of the video now, but this is your prerequisite. You must be able to perform these 12 body movements flawlessly, on demand, every time, without thought. Okay? If you can do that, then all the movements we see in this video will be very easy for you.